Yeah.
So now let's welcome our next speaker for today, Rashmi Shetty, who is the founder and director of The Third Eye and has an eclectic mix of experiences as a popular speaker, radio jockey, coach, facilitator, MC, and visiting faculty at colleges in Bangalore, India. She started as a master of public administration before moving on to different sectors and roles. She's a professional certified coach from the International Coaching Federation. She now serves as a trustee on the global board of the ICF Foundation. Her foray into the broadcasting medium introduced her to the power of voice, which she now uses as her framework in her one on one coaching exclusive sessions with CXOs and senior leaders on vocal presence. A national and international award winner for scripting and narrating radio documentaries, she is also an award winning podcaster who hosts a human library audio podcast called You and I with Rashmi Shetty. She will talk on the topic connecting to the voice in me, about how, in the brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible Bani world, connecting with the self is important. How do you work on your vocal presence? How do you find that voice within? Answers to these questions are very important. Welcome, Rashmi. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's here on this call for this conference. First of all, kudos to the whole organizing team for doing what you're doing, because it's humongous when it comes to putting all of this together. More than anything else, I'm sure all of you too listen to a voice in each one of you to go ahead and do this program. So when I chose voice in me as my hashtag, it has been a journey that I've had to understand that all of us have this little voice within, which is literally a whisper. And many of us end up not listening to it because of the noise outside. We're so focused on the noise outside that this whisper goes unheard. The moment we find that stillness within, that's when this whisper connects to us. And that moment of connection is the magical moment, which helps you find that voice in me. And when you connect to that, I can assure you it's magical. And that's the least that can be said. It's an experience all of us can choose to have. And that completely is a choice. So, talking about, well, I was introduced, so therefore there is no point. Okay. Any reason? Okay. Yeah. Now, moving ahead, since my introduction has already been done, this is going to be the objective. How do we connect to the self? Now, this is a question that has a lot of spiritual bent, but trust me, we are not going the spiritual side at all. Now, when it came to my own journey, how did I connect to the voice in me? Well, when I was reflecting what exactly is happening, because radio was something that happened to me by accident. I went into a workshop and then it led to a lot of ways in which I could get into the broadcasting medium. So it was not a planned move, but a move where I found myself, in the studio, in a radio station. You are alone in a room. You have the console, the faders, and your control. And when you switch on the fader, you go live, because I was working with FM. So it is a live show, and there's no corrections that can be done once you've said something on air. So you have to be really careful and mindful of what you're saying and how exactly you're saying it, because the audience who's tuned in is so, so sharp. And whether it is you smiling and speaking or whether it's you off mood, they can just pick it up. And after a while, every song that you play somewhere reflects your personality. So that's where this entire journey, which happened to me quite by accident, ended up influencing me to understand why it is important to stay connected with the self all the time. In that little studio, when you sit there and you switch on the fader and say good evening in whatever city you are, you think the whole city is listening to you. For all you know, nobody may be listening to you. But that joy you derive by talking and literally to nobody else but yourself is where the first Frivolous connect happens and then starts the deeper connect. Because you have to believe that what you're saying is creating an impact. Sometimes there is an internet failure as a result of which the messages that the audience is sending us doesn't reach us, technical failures, and therefore we have to still continue the show. You can't say that, sorry, your messages are not reaching me, and therefore I have to do the show. And that's where something deeper began to happen in a job that I thought was only about all the glitz and glamour of being an RJ, a voice behind that mic. What I understood is the quicker you understand all the elements that are present. So, this is what my framework is. Since I am identified with this word voice, that's why I decided to make that my coaching framework as well. So, when I say voice, there are 5 elements that make up your voice. First is the volume that you use. Now, if you have a microphone, obviously you can adjust the volume. But even when you speak one on one, there's something called as a soft landing when you're speaking to people. And there are some people, the moment they start speaking, you just listen. And that's the beauty of understanding how to adjust your volume. All of us have modulations. It's just when we become conscious that the modulations go for a toss. And that modulation is called as oscillation, because we all know voice is sound and sound is a wave. So there's an up and a down, a crest and a trough. So it's important for us to understand that naturally what we are good at somewhere stops us from being who we truly are. Like if you watch little children at play and you see all of them modulate so beautifully, absolutely unconscious of who's watching them. But it's as we start growing older, we become totally conscious of what the world is going to tell us about who we are, and their validations begin to matter. So watch little children and you'll understand we naturally are great at modulation. And the more you become aware of it, that's where that oscillation in your voice helps you throw your voice, or the inflection with your voice comes to the fore. Inflection is what you do when you throw your voice at a particular pitch. So when you speak, you have a rhythm. Singers have a scale, and so do speakers. There is a scale. And what is the scale? The scale establishes that when you go soft in your voice, how well you're heard and how beautifully you can modulate, to how loud you can go and still be heard and modulate your voice. So we are not talking shouting here. We are talking about playing with the voice, the pitch, and how well you can throw it. And the throw of the voice comes from something called as the breath. Now, this is where you become aware of your breathing. There's a very popular exercise. And this, again, was something which, apart from RJing, and when I thought my journey with voice was over, when I gave up radio because I was starting the third eye somewhere around 2014, after 10 years on radio, I realized another journey with voice began, which was hosting and anchoring musical shows. So that love for old Hindi music, which I hosted for 10 years as Meethi Yade, old Hindi songs. If you're an old Hindi song buff, then yes, we can definitely connect. Continued with live shows that I host till date in Bangalore. Amazing songs, but the stories that I had collected make that much more meaning to whatever I anchor during any musical show. There are such beautiful stories behind every song that has been created between the lyricist and the music composer or the filmmaker, and the camaraderie that existed in the industry at that point of time is something that is worthy of legendary. And when it comes to these kind of stories, I also get to meet some amazing human beings. And one of them was Kabir Bedi. Kabir Bedi, for those of you who are not familiar, is one of the first Indian actors who crossed shores to Italy to do live theater. And therefore, throw of the voice or inflection is very important when it comes to theater, because you're live and you're speaking right there. So when I was watching him in the green room, I noticed he smokes a lot, but they say smoking is bad for the voice. And in his case, his voice is still pristine. When he speaks, the auditorium actually vibrates. So when I got time with him and I asked him, how and what do you do with your voice to maintain it so well? He said, there's one exercise, Rashmi, I always find time for, and that is the Om exercise. What is the Om exercise? It's, if you transliterate Om in English, it's A as in A, U, U, and M or M. Okay, so AUM is how you say it. And these are at three levels because you have your top voice, your chest voice, and your bass or your diaphragmatic voice. So when you talk about okay, when you take a deep breath in and start with you're working with your top voice, which is if you're soft spoken and you want to increase your volume, stay longer there. And when you talk about chest voice is not something that we really use. So you can go, now the vibration is the one that is most important because it goes right from your diaphragm. And if you notice, good singers, for those of you who are familiar with Indian music, you have singers like we had SPB and Lata Mangeshkar, SP Balasubramaniam, Lata Mangeshkar, who could sing such long shlokas without taking a break, or the recent phenomenon Shankar Mahadevan, who even went with a song called Breathless. Well, what they really work well with is their breath, the diaphragmatic voice. So the more you speak from your diaphragm, the more calmer you sound. And when you go really deep with the and last long there, that's where you pick your diaphragmatic voice. So that's where the throw of the voice comes out best from. And then comes clarity. You know, most of us are guilty of speaking within ourselves. We don't even realize that. But when you enunciate and pronounce words very well, you become that much more clear to the world. And that's when people love to listen to you. So clarity in speaking is extremely important, with the words that you're saying and how you enunciate them. And then come emotions. When we talk about emotions, again, I'm talking about the emotion with which you say the word that conveys the emotion. Okay. For example, this is something that I always share, where you say that, okay, there is this, I come from Bangalore. So there is this patch of land outside the city of Bangalore, which is lush, green, and very beautiful. Lots of animals and birds live there. After the rains, it's a beautiful place to visit. All the animals and birds there are happy, right? Now, if I say this with emotions, automatically you'll notice how much shifts in the way we speak. As in, there is this lovely, beautiful piece of land outside the city of Bangalore. It's lush and green most of the time. All the animals and birds that live there are really happy. Now, when you say happy and you're happy, it translates. And the more you're connected to the way in which you speak these words, that's where the first five elements and mainly emotions get connected. So it's volume, oscillation, inflection, clarity, and emotion. Then come the next elements parallelly that we work with, because it is all about leadership as well. Voice is a metaphor too. It's not literally the voice that we are blessed with, but how well we use it. When we have an opinion, we don't share it. We are like, come on, let's hear your voice, right? So at a more deeper level of being a metaphor, especially with leadership, voice is around vulnerability, being real, being who you truly are, and most importantly, accepting of yourself the way you are is where leaders truly inspire. And that's where being vulnerable and listening to people genuinely, wanting to know what your team member or your peer is going through, is where you show that you generally are connected. The next letter, O, stands for objectivity. How is it connected to the voice? Well, our voice reflects our emotional state. When you're nervous, there are lots of fillers that come in, okay, without your knowledge. just keeps coming in without our knowledge. And that objectivity, if you bring into the way you handle situations, bereft of being connected emotionally, you become the observer instead. You end up speaking with a lot more firmness and confidence. Then comes informed. You don't have to speak a lot to tell the world that you're an informed person. Just a few sentences is enough for people to gauge how much you know the subject that you're talking about. So, how do you measure and value those words you use such that people understand you are aware? That's all. So, choosing your words carefully and making sure you're speaking short sentences is far more impactful than speaking really long sentences. Compassion. Now, what is compassion? I'd read somewhere that empathy plus action is compassion. Okay, what is empathy? Trying to get into somebody else's shoes and trying to understand what they're going through. But just stopping with that is not enough. When you move to the next stage of going into the action mode to make a difference to them, that is where you are compassionate. Somebody has been a very good team member, but in the last week or 10 days, he's been reporting in late, not himself. You call and ask him for whatever updates you want on the task given, and he's not very sure. He's very unsure. You ask him a couple of times in the team meeting. He just says, yeah, it's all fine. It's okay. Then the compassionate leader steps in. And when you speak to him at that point, speak to him alone, take him out for coffee. And when you ask him, it's your voice that conveys to him the way you ask him that makes him want to share. Let's assume his name is Sunil, and you say something like, Sunil, you've been somebody who was great in our team, a major contributor. But of late, I've noticed that you're pretty lost. You're not coming on time in the last 3, 4 days. And that's where you have to be very specific. That's when you start understanding whether he's willing to say something or not. If you become generic and say, off late, you've been coming late for the last 15 days, 20 days, you're not yourself, then that kind of puts them off. It seems more like a complaint than a call for, you know what, I want to listen to you. So being compassionate is in the way you're sharing, caring, and also letting them know you're doing the two. And if you have all of this, what you definitely have is engagement. Now, where does this play in coaching? Because this voice framework, especially the leadership elements of coaching, come with this entire part, which you can see reflects even in our core competencies. Okay, these are the ICF core competencies that we are talking about here. So when I say vulnerability, it's about cultivating trust and safety. And what is the definition? This is taken straight from the core competencies, where you partner with a client to create a safe, supportive environment. And this allows the client to share freely. So when you're vulnerable, you are also building trust and creating that psychological safe space for him or her to be who they truly want to be. There is respect, there is trust. And that's where objectivity comes in. Because here, you are not going to be emotionally entangled, but you're able to be open, curious, flexible about your own impressions about what life throws at them, and also keep it more oriented to the other person rather than from your point of view or your perspective. How do you come across as informed? That's where you listen actively. This is one of the core competencies which I love as far as coaching is concerned, because you need to focus without allowing any thoughts to come in, to fully understand what is it that they're saying and what could their probable context be, because that's where they are looking for support. And when they are having problems with expression, look for those cues to step in. Don't be in a hurry to give what you want to give. Maybe they don't even need it. All they need is a sounding board. So play that role. And that's where evoke awareness. Compassion is that awareness that you bring in, because it kind of allows you, when you're objective, to pick the insights which you otherwise would miss if you're too emotionally invested. And the questions that you ask don't have to be long. I heard this in a webinar and I thought it was so powerful that when the client is speaking and you are understanding they're speaking truly from a space of vulnerability, don't be in a hurry to say and. I loved it when he said, use and with a small a, which means it's a soft and, which is almost unheard. And that's where you show compassion. And the person knows you're genuinely interested and not in a hurry. And that is where, when you do this, you facilitate the growth mutually because you are partnering with that particular client only to make sure that you help them grow. And for you as a coach, it definitely is growth. And when you do all of this, this is where your coaching voice comes up. And for me, this was something that I found in the pandemic because we all went physically inward and we sat shut indoors. And I was like, what can I give people that I have been doing with? I was doing a lot of soft skills training and corporate training before that. But I realized that my 10 years invested, and by then I was doing a lot of voiceovers, I was anchoring shows, I was hosting events. So I'm connecting to thousands of people at one go, and most of them went online as well. So, what is it that we needed to do? And all of this started falling in place. Since coaching became prime at that time, training had taken a backseat. A lot of coaching opportunities opened up because many people understood the value of vocal presence. We all know what's executive presence. The moment a person comes in, whether online or offline, and what they create in the first few seconds. But we don't realize that vocal presence is what keeps them glued to what you're going to speak then on when you start. That connect needs to be instant. And it was the pandemic where people realized the value of vocal presence. So when we talk about voice in coaching, the same leadership elements, we see vulnerability mainly to create trust and safety, objectivity with both connections and flexibility. You don't bring in any of your emotional backlog. And then the informed self on the expression and the environment, compassion by using silence. Metaphors, we all know, is an amazing coaching tool, and non judgment. And engagement is what you get as an output, as a result, which leads to both growth and awareness. And with all of this, the power of the voice is thus that we all can use in fairness. But we spoke about Bani. Okay, Bani is very close to my coaching program for women, which I call as Vani, because that is speech in Sanskrit. But when we translate it to English, the founder of Bani calls it as Bani. And what is that? Well, we'll understand in a while, because what happened in the pandemic also was LinkedIn had called in for creators from India to submit any kind of framework that they think they would like to talk about. Okay. You had to do a 60-second video of what you have in mind. And I was already working with voice. So I thought, why not go deeper? Because by then I started understanding there's a deeper level of who we are and what we have within us. And that's where this framework emerged. So the deepest level with leadership, it's more with the self. Okay. That's where we talk about we for vision. What are we envisioning for ourselves? What are we looking at to take to the next level? What is it that we want to achieve? And then I was like, okay, O is equal to outcome of the coaching of what is happening around us, of life itself. And that's where I stumbled upon Jack Canfield's formula. The man who wrote The Chicken Soup for the Soul has a very beautiful formula that events plus response, E plus R is equal to O. So outcome is equal to events plus response. And the closest that all of us can relate to, no matter where we're coming from, is the pandemic. The event was the pandemic. How each of us responded to it made a huge difference in how we looked at it. And that was prime. That was the outcome of whatever we are doing today, right? So this is something that happened 4 years ago, but the outcome of it is what we are seeing today. So it's not the event. Most of the time, the event is beyond us. But what is completely in our control is the response to that event, which has a huge outcome on how we foresee the future and how we handle ourselves and move ahead with choice in life. Then comes information filter. Thanks to the pandemic, we all moved online, and today we have an information overload. As somebody who's a leader, somebody who is going to help other people grow, you need to know what to filter because there is an overload online. So people, whatever you're saying, if people can pick it up from online, why would they even come to you? So how do you filter what is there to make it your own such that people find it interesting is a very important tool for us to understand. And C stands for communication skills. Now, communication does not mean only words. There are three tools that I constantly stress on, which is silence, pause, and pace. Communication entails all these three too. The power of silence is so underestimated. The power of pace is something most of us don't even know the value of. And pause, oh my God. If you do it appropriately, there are so many beautiful connections that will remain intact. And they form a big part of the skills that we need to build. I'm calling them skills because we can practice all three. All three can be practiced and built upon. And E stands for energy. Now, when I say energy, it's the way you speak and how you connect. But E also stands for MC squared. Now, we know that as the formula for theory of relativity, but E here is energy, which is equal to meaningful connections to the power of 2. Who is your network? Who is speaking about you and for you when you are not there in the room? Who are the people who form your tribe, continue your vibe, and are more than willing to stay with you? Those are the meaningful connections. You don't have to have 1,000 and 1,000,000. Even if you have a small number, but you know you can go back to them when you are down, that is when you understand that you have built the right community. So voice at a deep level became all of this: vision, what you see for yourself in the future; outcome, which is events plus response; I for information filter that we all need; C for communication skills, which is ironically not communication, but silence, pause, and pace. Three tools that work fantastically. Many organizations have moved offline, many still stay hybrid, and many sessions like these happen online as well, even today. But these three tools will never become stale. The more you use them, the more you'll realize the deeper is your connect, both with the self and with the world outside. And the energy that you exude is the number of people who stand behind you holding your back, because they're clearly sure you're holding theirs as well. So that is where this entire formula evolved and got me into that list of 200 creators from India that LinkedIn picked to take them into a 10-week cohort where we were trained on how to create content and present ourselves. So voice is something which is way deeper. And we spoke about Bani, or I would love to call it Bani, because Bani in Bengali is Vani, how we call in Sanskrit. So the creator of this concept, Jemai Casio, is somebody who was a futurist and came up with this concept way back in 2018. But people started talking about it because we moved from the VUCA world suddenly into the pandemic, where this word started getting very relevant. Very, very relevant. And I loved what he said when he conceptualized these words. So B standing for brittle, A for anxious, N for non-linear, and I for incomprehensible. So when we talk about brittleness, anxious anxiety, and the non-linearity that all of us are part of, we also understand there are many things that go incomprehensible, and especially in the confusion that we were during the confusion called the pandemic, right? So right there is a picture of mine. Uh, Let me see if I can. Okay, it doesn't matter. There is a poster that I have on the right-hand side of this presentation. And this is where I actually went through this entire process of Bani. So this was a concert that happened. If you can see the date, it is the 24th of August, 2019. It is a very life-changing moment for me because I was part of this concert as a storyteller, and it was on Kishore Kumar. So it was a sold out show. For those not in India, he's one of the very renowned playback singers who's no more with us, but whose songs live till date to tell us what singing is truly about. And this was a concert on Kishore Kumar, and a lot of work had gone into building all the stories around him. And suddenly, on August 15th, my mother had a stroke in her sleep and she went into coma. When we waited for my brother, my sister, and everyone else to come, and the doctor said she's not fighting. I don't think she will take it anymore. You can take her home. And once we brought her home, we were seeing her sinking, and she passed away on the 19th. This concert was on the 24th. On the 19th, I didn't even think about the concert. 20th, I didn't bother. By 22nd, when my dad was going through the newspaper, he saw a full page ad which said, "Thank you, Bangalore, for making this concert a houseful show." So 3 days before the show, it was already a houseful one. And he looked at me and he said, "So you're going for this, right?" I said, "No, Papa, I'm in no frame of mind to go," because I was extremely close to my mother and had spent some really beautiful years with her. And she was my strength, my support, looking after my children when I was going out and working. And she was constantly there pushing me to find who I can be. And my dad said, "No, you're a professional at the end of the day. And they've sold the tickets, which means you're part of the poster, you're going." And I just smiled at him, but I was wondering, what is the meaning of this? Will I be able to do it? The producers just gave the choice to me. They said, "We can't organize an MC at the end of the day. So, Rashmi, your choice, we completely understand. Don't worry, take a call." So I decided I'll go for the rehearsals and see how I feel, because that was the first time I was stepping out of my home atmosphere. And I went in, I couldn't stay for more than half an hour, but I came back and I remembered that I'd shared a lot of stories with my mother. She loved listening to all that I was doing. So I'd shared a lot of stories, which is part of my research about Kishore Kumar and all the songs that we were doing. And she used to enjoy all of them. So I sat down and my dad sat me down and he said, "You should do this for her sake," because she knew what you were going to do and she was equally excited. And on the 24th, I reached the venue. I was wearing her favorite sari, and I knew somewhere she's there with me. And I went in for the show. 6:30, the show was to begin. 6:15, one of the singers came up to me. I was away from all of them because I knew I could not handle myself in a crowd. So he came up to me and he said, I'm sure this show is very special because you're going to dedicate it to someone super special," because they all knew where I'm coming from and what state I was in. So he just said that. And when you have a wound which is raw and somebody just tries to heal it but doesn't, you end up feeling the pain even more. And there I was bursting into tears. And at that moment, he hugged me and he said, "I'm sorry, but I know." And many others were coming backstage to wish the other singers noticed me crying. And they went in, of course, and they asked the singer, "Why is she crying?" "Because she's going to go up in 15 minutes. And they told them the truth. And all of them, while passing by me, said, "Oh, we are so sorry, we are so sorry." And that didn't help any which way. So I moved away physically from there, closer to the screen. And I stood there in silent prayer. And it was a prayer to my mother this time, where I told her that, Amma, you know what I have been through. You know the stories and the preps that has been happening. And you should now give me the strength, because I don't know whether I'll remember my script. And I just closed my eyes. I just stayed for a few minutes with myself and that silence. And when the screen opened and people began to clap, the music began, I went in there and I spoke. I was surprised because it was not me. Every part of that script just came out so fluently that I surprised myself. Without a script to look into, I was actually speaking and I could see myself perform there. It was like a beautiful out of body experience where I understood what Bani meant. When you're brittle, you are almost breaking there. You're anxious whether you'll perform. There is a whole system that is dependent on you. It's not linear. You have the orchestra playing behind, the singers who are dependent, the producers of the show, the audience who's sitting there for the stories. They normally listen from you. Everything becomes incomprehensible. And at that point, I understood what this meant. This was in 2019, but when I read about this concept in 2020, when it became popular, because people were talking, mental toughness, anxiety, mental illness, loneliness, Bani started making sense. I had experienced it myself, and I realized that all you need at that point is counters to Bani. So when we talk about counters to Bani, we are talking about brittleness, well, resilience. It's so important to be resilient. And when you are resilient, you're also flexible, you're open, you just surrender to that moment. And what is the counter to anxiety? You become constantly aware. You start living in the moment, start picking up the power of connections. Because my energy that day, I drew from the audience. And every time they cheered or they clapped, because they didn't know what I was going through. Most of them were not even aware where I was coming from that day. But when the cheer and the claps came, it helped me, told me that, okay, fine, now go, go. You are going the right way. You have not surrendered. And that system of this entire nonlinear connections that I had with everyone in that hall. It's 1,000-seater capacity and it was house full. Each member in that 1,000 mattered to me that day, because what they helped me is being aware of myself. And what became completely clear for me was following the pattern I was in that day, understanding my pattern, and to be intuitive to pick up whatever I wanted to tell and whatever was coming from within with whatever I had prepared. And this, my friends, you can apply to any situation, whether in your organization or in your personal life. And the more you start seeing this around you, today, we know loneliness is the new pandemic. Many youngsters are not able to express it because they're kind of broken from within. And that brittleness needs to be held together very delicately. There are a lot of people around us who are not able to share. They don't know what they're going through. And at that time, finding that connect with that voice within can help you be the voice for so many without. Watch people, observe people, stop being the person, being the one giving the advice. Most of the time, people just want to come and share. When somebody says, can I speak to you for 5 minutes? And you say yes, remember you've committed 5 full minutes. Speak only once they are done. Don't interrupt. The problem with the world today, and most of us are guilty of it, is we do not listen. And the more as coaches, as leaders, we use this technique of countering Bani, being more intuitive, seeing that pattern and picking it up, understanding we are all part of the same system. So every cog in that wheel needs to be properly oiled. Only then will that wheel move. And therefore, everyone in that system matters. None of us can make it in life alone. We need a whole system behind us, helping us achieve whatever we are setting out to achieve. And that's where this particular framework made complete sense to me. Today, if you see the number of suicides in the younger crowd, is because they're completely confused. We blame social media, but then the problem is the filters are not used well enough. And the moment we use social media like it should, then a lot of these problems automatically get countered. And when they are countered, you know you're going in the right direction. So when we talk about this entire process of Vani, it becomes very important for us to understand that with our own Vani, what we need to do is connect to ourselves. If you're feeling down, use the mirror. Pick your phone, talk to yourself, a WhatsApp message to your own self. Or take a book, write down what you're feeling. Same thing with your coachee or your team member. Understand that sometimes just venting it down through words or through a person to a person who's willing to listen and who's not going to judge you. That kind of a trust is what helps you become that person who's completely connected to the voice in me. And the moment that happens, you can see magic. Because this was a very beautiful anonymous quote that I found, which said, listen to your own voice, your own soul. Too many people listen to the noise of the world instead of themselves. Deep inside, you know what you want. Let no one decide that for you. And when you get that connection, like I did, for me, this is a picture of me in the radio station. And this picture was what conveyed how I connected. Because when you put that headphone on and you're speaking into the mic, which is the most sensitive mic that catches even your breath, okay, because I want to share this instance where one of the moments, I was usually a day jock, which means I used to work from 11 to 5. And I wasn't working anywhere at that time when I just joined the radio station. It was a part-time job for me, but I had not picked up anything else. So everyone else who was working full-time and they couldn't do a week show would call me and say, Rashmi, can you fill in for us? And I loved it because I get 1 hour to play old Hindi songs, which was what I grew up on, and the stories connected to the song. Many a time when I prepare for my shows, I remember my kids who were really small at that time would laugh seeing the amount I read and the amount of notes I make. And they would tell me, Amma, nobody's listening to you. Amma, why are you preparing? And I never realized, I smiled at them and I said, no, I know there are some people listening. And even I was like, I hope people are listening. But at that point, it was the joy of just sitting there and sharing those stories because I was excited to share the stories that I found in old filmfare magazines and film magazines and online about what went behind making a particular song, a very popular song, because we were trained in the radio station. During our training, I belonged to that first batch of certified RJs that All India Radio had brought out, where they told us your airtime is very important. And I think this applies to coaches as well. Your airtime is very important. Make it make a difference to whoever is listening to you. If you don't have anything important to say or anything that's going to make a difference, keep quiet. Play the song instead. Whatever you say by the end of the show, which is an hour, when the audience filters it, they should have a good amount of knowledgeable filter. So you are in infotainment. At the end of your 1 hour, they should have good information along with entertainment. And this was drilled into us right from the beginning. So I think as coaches also, we have airtime and we have to be very conscious of it because it's precious, both for us and our clients. And the moment we become aware of what we are saying and how we are saying it, we are using our voice right. The moment we use the tools of silence, pause, and pace, we are connecting with ourselves right. And the more we start doing it, because it's in that stillness and the quiet that is there around us that we connect to that voice within. And choosing that stillness, like I always say, is a matter of choice. And being able to smile, well, I have to share this story. There was this one day when instead of the usual 11 to 5, I was put on a 5 to 11 shift, which is evening 5 to night 11. And I leave home, like always, 1 hour before. But Bangalore traffic, well, those who live in Bangalore know about it, uh, is terrible. And I underestimated the traffic. I ended up getting stuck. And I'm not somebody, at least from this bit of a frame, you know that I'm not a runner. And that particular day, I literally had to run to reach the studio on time because there was a huge jam and no vehicle could go further. I reached, we are normally supposed to reach half an hour before our show. My show was to start at 5. I reached at 4:49. And in All India Radio, the clock works by microseconds because people adjust their clocks, their watches to All India Radio's time announcements. So we have to be really, really punctual. I entered, there was a colleague of mine who was a good friend, and she said she knew there was some reason why I came late. And therefore, she said, just chill because we have a live news update that goes from our studio. So no noise. Like I said, the mics are very sensitive. And that particular day, I entered the studio and I told her, no, I will manage all in sign language. She set it all up for me and she got up. I sat down. It's a 3-minute news update. And I was so sure 3 minutes was enough for me to catch my breath. The news went live. It was over. The commercials played, everything done, signature tune. But because a new RJ takes over at 5, you have to announce who's the RJ. And I had to say who is in the studio. So what I did, I was still catching my breath. So I just pulled up the fader and I said, good evening, you're tuned into 101.3 FM Rainbow with me, Rashmi Shetty, our topic after this song. And I pulled down the fader and played the longest song on my list. Because I thought, okay, 7 to 10 minutes is good enough for me to catch my breath and get into the show to explain what theme we are going to talk about. But within the first 10 seconds of me pulling down my fader and playing the song, the first message that appeared on the message board for me was, how come, Rashmi, you're not smiling today? And that told me the connection that you have with your voice. When it is the voice in me, it connects to the world outside as well. And that's where this journey taught me why it is important when you listen to your own voice, that's quiet and stillness and that sensitive mic is what you have to be aware of as a coach or a leader when you pull up your fader to say anything. First, connect to the self. You'll automatically connect to the world outside. The voice in me and the connection to it, I reiterate, is a choice. And I always end with a poem which came to me as a foreword. I love this poem. I'm guilty of sharing it everywhere. So I'm going to do it again. It's again, an anonymous foreword that came to me at the most confused point of my life. And I would like to share it because it makes so much sense now. The poem is titled, You Are a Star. It goes thus. Don't say you're not important. It simply isn't true. The fact that you're born is proof God has a plan for you. The path may seem unclear right now, but one day you will see all that came before was truly meant to be. God wrote this book that is your life. That's all you need to know. Each day that you're living was written long ago. God only writes bestsellers, so be proud of who you are. Your character is important. In this book called life, you are the star. So in your book called life, you are the star. Just think back a little. If I ask you who was Miss Universe or Miss World 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or last year, most of us wouldn't know. In spite of her grabbing all the limelight, news headlines, paper, magazine, everything that social media. But if I ask each one of you here to recall a kindergarten teacher who still stays with you, whose memories bring smiles, all of you have a name. And that teacher was not a page three celebrity, but someone who touched you just by being who she is. And that's what, my friends, is what we need to do. Connect to who you truly are. You will connect to the voice in you. I'm open now to questions. I know we have another 8 minutes maybe. So if there are any questions, please can you put it out there? Anything that you...
Hi, Rashmi.
Hi, yeah.
Imani, I'm reading out a question which is from an anonymous attendee, but
Okay.
nevertheless, how can someone be comfortable of themselves if they don't have so much of experience and is developing as a coach?
Oh, it's very important. When you got on the coaching journey, it's not about proving you're a great coach. Ask yourself the question why you got on the coaching journey. What is it that you decided you can give because of which you got onto the coaching journey? Because coaching and mentoring are two different things, right? When you're a mentor, your experience, specialization, all of them matter. When you're a coach, you can be a generalist. All you need to do is listen, because when your clients are sharing their story, their problems, whatever they've come for coaching to you for, they are dropping clues as well. So don't sit there to say, okay, how do I prove to this person that I'm the all-knowing one? No, sit there to say that I'm going to listen, completely focused on listening. Because coaching is not mentoring. You're not going to advise the person. You're not going to solve his problem. You're going to help him go inward. And that is why coaching is so beautiful.
Right.
So it
Thank
doesn't
you.
matter whether you're new or old. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just say this one sentence?
Please do.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you're new or old. What matters is how and why did you come into coaching? Ask yourself that question time and again. You will find your answers and your style of coaching as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any more questions? There are no more in the chat box, in the question and answer box. But okay, there's one more by Kaveri. That is virtual coaching versus in person. What are your thoughts?
Both have their pluses, Kaveri. Virtual coaching is as impactful. I was somebody who did not think it would work as powerfully. Though when I did my coaching credentialing, it was way back in 2013. And at that time, we had Skype on which we coached people, or it was telephone calls. Okay. So even at that time, it was virtual in a way, but it was wonderful connecting because coaching for me has been a lot about my own journey as a coach. So when you get onto the coaching journey, first understand who you are. Okay. Virtual has its challenges. Sometimes cameras have to be off because of the internet and bandwidth issues. These are some really basic challenges that you have. The voice may not come in, thanks again to the stability of the Wi-Fi or the router. These challenges happen. But virtually, another advantage is that you are not there in that room with the person. So the person, as long as he or she is alone, can sometimes just pour her heart out to you virtually. Okay. This has happened to me in coaching sessions where there is a breakdown, but the breakdown is something that you cannot, like if you're sitting in the room with the person, at least you can hold the person's hand and just keep it strongly in yours. But if the person is breaking down virtually, it can be a challenge for somebody who's not seen that before. But I have seen the magic of the coaching parlance, which goes that breakdowns are the breakthroughs. Okay, so whether this happens virtually or in person, definitely that breakdown will help that. And don't say anything. Okay, don't say anything. Because that's what I did. The first time I saw it, I just kept quiet. I lent silence. And after a point, she collected herself and she said, no, Rashmi, this is just what I had within me, completely cooped up for the last so many years, that your question just opened it for me. And that's why I'm sharing this now with you. And she went on and she became my brand ambassador. She told everyone she knew, gave me some amazing clients of what kind of a coach Rashmi is. So she just told everyone she knew about me. And a lot of that went by word of mouth. So, because again, in coaching, we can't advertise and stuff like that. So it's more word of mouth because coaching is an experience. So virtual also has its highs, but nothing like face to face, because you get the energy, you get the vibe. There is no internet instability. You can see the body language, you can see how you're feeling, and you can see the reflection or the mirroring on the client. Yes, face to face is magic, is always magic, but virtual, I've seen magic happen there as well. So I think the only other side of virtual are the internet challenges. Otherwise, it's the same. And that's where coaching today gives us the opportunity for global clients. And it really has reached across shores. So I think virtual has its big advantage over face to face. You cannot travel everywhere to coach people, right? So that's where virtual bridges that gap and makes your availability seem like a not at all a challenge, because you're available for anyone, anywhere, and they can connect to you for a coaching session.
Thanks, Rashmi. We'll just take one last question because
Sure.
of time.
Yeah, sure.
Which is that uh, coaches use pause and silence as a powerful tool. How to use the pace in a coaching conversation? This is by Adhir.
Adhir, pace is in how you're going to word your question and how many words are you going to put in your question. Okay? When you hear, there are thoughts racing in your head when you see the client speaking, because for many of the issues they're facing, you have answers already. And therefore, you wait for a long pause and you step in to give or cue in your answers or suggestions. So that is where pace matters. Hold it. Okay? If you want to ask a lot of questions, ask the shortest question then. And that way you become aware of yourself at that point of time. Ask your shortest, how so? How do you think this is going to make a difference? Ask questions like that, where you're going to allow the coachee or the client to speak rather than you asking a long drawn question. And that's where pace matters. Okay, so be careful in wording your question, very short, minimal words, and therefore you will really pace out those words, because you're not asking a long question and therefore you're running short of time, like we are now. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. And Rashmi, you have shared your LinkedIn coordinates. If somebody would like to get in touch with you, can they do that? If there's one more question left. So Ruchi, please connect with Rashmi if you'd like, and any other person also, if you have any more pressing questions or you want to share something with Rashmi. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Himani. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Love this entire setup and the thought behind this. So congratulations to the entire team for putting it up so beautifully. All the very best for the next 2 days as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rashmi. It was truly inspiring, your session, and I'm sure everybody had lots to take away from this session. And I think it personally connected to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now it's time to begin the next session. I request you all to stay on the same webinar for this session.